Well, good evening, my ISAers. Are y'all ready for 8 short weeks and a lot of hard work? Right? That being said, it will be quite a lot of hard work in 8 short weeks. Don't ask me why I put 16 attendance points in your syllabus when there's only 8 class nights. Guess I was trying to be generous. But since there's only 8, they're 2.5 points apiece. And that's what's in the grade book. So that's the change. Review questions. You have a total of 12 chapters, each with review questions that have about 20 review questions. They're due on certain days that were in your calendar, usually on Saturdays. 15 points apiece. Overall gives you 18% of your overall course grade. One security policy worth 200 points, or 20% of your overall course grade. You'll have 4 unit tests worth 100 points apiece. That's 40% of your grade. And a final exam worth 200 points, or 20% of your final grade. Like I said, it's going to be a very heavy, hard-hitting semester. Good news. You show up, do what I ask you to do, you'll pass my class with an A. Good news? You'll like that, don't you? The security policy. In D2L, right before class, I put up a security policy template. The security policy template was created by a student of mine at ITT. It's put in open office format, ODT, and it is structured in an objective form layout. What that means is there's titles, objectives, permissions. It has objective statements, procedures, change management is in there, disciplinary actions, methods, procedures, all that is in there. You're going to create a security policy for a business. That is the security policy that we're talking about in here. You're to have no less than 12 sections, each containing no less than 10 subsections. Did y'all catch that? No less than 12 sections that contain no less than 10 subsections. So in other words, 120 policies. Now the policies don't have to be 5 pages long. They can be a paragraph long. Okay. One of your policies could be password policy. And one of the sub-policies on there could be password complexity. It has to meet these requirements for password complexity. Password length, password time. Start naming off the different types of passwords. Okay? Find 10 criteria for a password. And you've matched one category of password. Does that make sense? So you write the first one, just copy and paste it, and then change the objective. Because when you write the original document, the original document was the draft that has never been changed, right? So you're not going to have any change management. So you're instituting this new policy. Does that make sense? Are you following me? You'll see it better. Here, let me just bring it up for you. And this is what we're going to do. All you're going to have to do is just change some of the information that's in here. I mean, you're going to have to retype it to your compliances into your policy, and you're not going to be able to copy and paste this because I want you to do your own. I left it in there for an example. You're going to have an objective. What is this policy about? So you're going to have a section called whatever this main policy type is about. The subsection. Here you're going to have your 10 subsections. Does that make sense? So it'll be 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, 1.5. Make sense? You list the objective of this subsection, the purpose of it, who are the audience, who's going to be reading this, what that policy is, any exceptions, if there's a violation of it, what is it going to be? Now, most disciplinary actions are going to be generic in nature. They could be terminated from employment, blah, 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 blah. That could be standard throughout all your policies, so you may not ever have to change it. Create the one sheet and just keep copying and pasting that, use that template over and over and over and over. Just rename the file. You know, just create your blank template with the template fields, and then just make X amount of copies of them, rename all the file names, and then do it that way. Revision, record of changes. See, you got 0, draft. Of course, you change the date of the draft. But you'll have to come up here into the headers and change the policy information. Does that make sense? See how easy that is? And then what you're going to do, of course, you'll save it, but you'll just line it up in here. And make it, you'll give me an index for it. You'll have a preface page that lists all of them, kind of a cover sheet, and then you give me an index page of what all the policies are. I want an index for each policy section that will kind of give me an idea of what each subsection is. Does that make sense? So you'll have a 1.0 that will describe all what the 1.1s, 1.2s, 1.3, 1.4, 1.5 is. Then you'll give me one for 2.0s. Give me all the 2s. So forth and so on. And give me in brief details of what they are. Just like you would have a binder flipper, a file tab or something. And that'll be your security policy. All right? I would highly recommend that you look at Appendix A in your book for a security policy guideline. Okay? NIST 800-26, which is no longer in existence, it is now -53, is where you need to look to get the information on what kind of scenarios or questions you need to ask, or what type of best security practices to put into place. All right, does that make sense? So if you have a question on what kind of policies you want, I'm going to be uploading a ton of different security policies for you to look at. Some from SANS, some from NIST. I'm going to put out the ISO 27000 series for you to look at. Now, I'm going to tell you, if I catch you, any of you printing the ISO 27000 series, I will have to turn you in. Because I'm borrowing that from my friend. And he bought those. And those are copyrighted material. Now, you can print the NIST because they're free. But you can't print the ISO 27000 series because it's a $600 document for each one of them. He's letting me do it so I can show y'all what the management policies like. All right? Can I trust y'all? I want to hear a solid yes. Okay. I've been tempted just to make one printed copy and put it in my office, and you have to sign it out physically and bring it back to me. But I don't want to print it because it leaves his name on it, and it'd be kind of hard for me to say why I have his printed document in my office. But nevertheless, he said I could use it, and I have his written permission. So I want y'all to know he's been very gracious to let us use this. I thought about buying it myself, but I don't want to go spend $600 for a piece of paper.
I did not see you, and this did not look right.
So that's what we're doing for the security policy. Besides Kelly, is there any questions on the security policy? None?
So there's no, like, have to have a certain amount of pages for each
No.
section or subsection?
No, I'm not going to make you 20-page. By the time you get done with all this, you're going to be 120 pages anyway. So
12 sections, 10 subsections.
because each one of these are about 1 page.
Is there any specific topics that you want us to guarantee are in there?
No. I want you to physically think of how you would secure a building or secure your network. Yes.
I use the CMA document that my work uses.
I'm going to have you use this exact template.
Can I take the text from the CMA document my work uses? Because we do government, I do just this.
No, I want you to use your own words.
Okay.
And if I have a hint that it's government worded, I'll give you 0. I want you to use what you feel in your own words how you would implement this. Okay? Use your best judgment as to terminology. I will know if you use someone else's real policy words, even if it comes from SANS or NIST, or because they're legal words that you don't use in common language. And trust me, it's easy to know if you copy and paste it. And I catch more plagiarizers than you know. But I just want you to put forth a good effort on it, okay? I want you to think of defense in depth. How many of y'all familiar with that? Layered approaches, defense in depth. How many of you even heard of it? Raise your hand high so I can see. Only one? Really? Defense in depth. This is scary, guys. It really is. That only one of you have heard of this. And that's been...
I walked up and slapped him because he was in my Principles of Information Security class, and I know we covered it.
Cody or Brent? Brent?
I was in that class too, but
Okay.
Okay, well, let me put it this way.
We did cover it in that class.
You know, even if you've covered it in one class, it still should be covered in all classes dealing with information security, because it is a fundamental element of information security. It really is. A layered approach is simple. You have your data, right? That's what we're trying to protect. Plain and simple. Think of layers around it, like an onion. We're putting layers around it, right? That's a layered approach of security. You want to put as many layers as possible between your data and the outside intruder. That's all it means. Now, these layers can be firewalls, they can be routers, they can be switches, they can be human elements, they can be software, they can be programs, they can be utilities, they can be anything. They can be safes, they can be locks, they can be doors. It can be anything. That's what layered approach defense in depth. That's all it means. How many different types of layers can you put in there? We're not talking OSI model layer 1, 2, 3. But you could be layer 1 devices, layer 2 devices, layer 3 devices that you put in between your data and the outside world. What is the biggest threat or vulnerability to the data in your company? Does anyone know?
Users.
Your inside users. Why? Because they already have been authenticated to use that data. They already have the inside track to it. The biggest vulnerability is letting them use flash drives on your network. So, think about it. Would this not be a good policy to use? Implementing devices that are on this approach, right? So why not? Think about it. Why wouldn't we want to do it? It's a pretty simplistic idea, right?
Sounds.
It is pretty simple. Now, this concept can make it fairly difficult too. What's the problem if you make it too difficult?
People can't remember the rules.
Well,
They look for shortcuts.
well, no. If you make it too difficult, it becomes too difficult to manage, thus making it easier for the intruder to get in. Because the more difficult to manage, you're going to overlook things, and you're making it easier for the intruder. You'll miss a patch. You'll miss something.
Miss a lot.
Exactly. You'll overlook something. That intruder will take advantage of it. Right? That threat agent will exploit that vulnerability to get in there. It's pretty simple, right? So, in this instance of information security, we as managers of this need to take it and say, all right, how are we going to manage this? And how are we going to evaluate the risk? Are we going to accept this risk over this risk? Are we going to accept this option over this option? How are we going to do it? Do we need to buy this asset first or and let this one suffer, or what are we going to do? This is the idea of what information systems assurance is about. Risk management. Understanding and accepting risks. All right? You've got to be able to understand and identify how much risk a system can take. So when you go out, how many of you have had done any risk analysis before? You've done a risk analysis? How many of you have done penetration testing? One. How many of you have done any auditing of any kind? A couple people?
Auditing?
Mm-hmm. Well, it comes into play that those three categories really all come together in ISA. It's really an audited type class where we examine through a security policy what kind of policies do we need to implement to ensure these risks are mitigated. So that's what we're going to do this over these next 8 weeks. All right? Everyone on board with that? Now it's going to go by really fast. My goal is, on the last night, all we do is the final exam. that Monday before spring break. Because that's our last night, right? I want to say it's the 12th.
What's the final going to consist of? Is it just multiple choice? Or?
200 question multiple choice. Multiple choice true false.
Yeah.
10th?
Yes.
Well, that's a pretty good guess on the 12th, off the top of my head, within 2 days. But yes, the 10th. The night of the 10th. Because that next Monday is 17th, that would be right. The 10th will be your final exam. That's all we're going to do that night. So it means the next 6 nights we're covering 12 chapters. That means 2 chapters a night. So when you come back to class next week, you will have read through chapters 1 and 2. Because we will discuss chapters 1 and 2. Does it make sense? I just want to make sure I'm not going to miss anybody. I don't want to leave anybody behind because this is going to be a very fast-paced class. We're going to be talking about project management and security governance, and basically planning and governance next week. And then we'll go a little bit more in depth on the policies. Like I said, the templates are out there. I'd highly encourage you to go out there and start working on them. Okay. Yes.
The review questions, I don't think, did you already cover those?
The review questions, yes. They're in the back of the chapters. They're usually 20 questions, and you just do a Word document, 1 dot what in the answer.
Okay.
That's all I ask. You don't have to rewrite the questions. Just 1 dot in the answer. 2 dot the answer.
So all 20, no even or odd, or just all 20?
Yep.
Yeah, he's not gonna be,
Huh?
he's not gonna be like Stoller.
Nope. And but who knows? I may just say we're not going to do a unit test. You never know. Might be. You never know in my class. Just depends on how nice you are. Isn't that right, Elise?
That's right.
Christina? Cody?
Yep.
They learned last semester.
What's it take, like dinner?
My goodness. Now, I told a class one time, I said, if you really want to bribe me, bring me a venti white chocolate mocha. And I was just kidding. And next week I had 12 of them on my desk when I walked in. And I was like, what are you trying to do, get me drunk? The very next class I had a case of beer on there, and I said, what are you trying to do, kill me? I'm allergic to alcohol. And so they had a case of beer. I was being realistic. And they go, what do you mean by getting you drunk? I said, well, you had all that caffeine there. But no, I couldn't accept it anyway. My hands are tied when it comes to that. But it's thank you for the laugh, though. No, I have things up my sleeves that I can do stuff to help students out. So don't be surprised if I don't say we're not going to have any unit tests, or we might have unit test, or might have you give a unit test, and I'll just give you 100 anyway, or just because you make me mad, I may give you a pop quiz, or you never know. It really depends on my mood, and it varies from class to class. One class may piss me off, and they get hard Prof. Stokely, and the next class gets the easy Prof. Stokely. So I don't care if one class makes me mad, the next class they get the happy one. So that's pretty easy with me. Is there any questions? None?
Some of the assignments are they in the,
You just drop them in the Dropbox.
I mean, are they in the, because I didn't see, are they in the PowerPoints or are they?
The chapter
They're
reviews.
in the chapter reviews. They're in your book.
Oh,
Let me finish making sure everyone's here. Roger, Garrett. Deborah? Okay. Kelly, you're here. Melvin? Paul Thomas. All right. That's 3 no-shows. 3 zeros. Zeros are just as easy to type in as 100. Do what? Easier. No, I actually put them in hand and keep these switches. It was a continuation issue. Cool. If you need me, call me, email me. Now you don't have an excuse for each class. Each of you in every class that you've had with me now have one. So none of you have an excuse. You've had it on the syllabus, and you have my business card. So I've eliminated all those excuses. You didn't laugh. I knew it wasn't going to work. So what do you think this class is going to be like? It's going to be hard, huh? You think? Do what? Strenuous.
I think I need to pay attention when I'm enrolling better.
When you see Stokely on there, you say, no, I'm not going to take his class.
I need to pay attention to the length of the class. I thought it was 16 weeks. It doesn't matter either way.
We're gonna have Ken just auto enroll you in it.
Oh, Ken Otto enrolled you in it? You just